It's time to get to work. Welcome back to a new exciting episode of the Coaching Life Podcast. I'm Chris Stewart, one of your hosts, and my good friend Pat Martin and I are going to be talking today about our actual plans to put the coaching life into practice. It's always been our goal to not just talk about stuff, but to actually model stuff. And so today we're going to talk about how we are modeling the things that we have been discussing on this very podcast for almost a year now. So we hope that you'll sit back, grab a notebook, grab a beverage, take some notes, and we want you to, as you are listening to us talk about our plans, we want you to make plans for what you can do as well. If you're interested in making the landscape of youth athletics better, then you challenge yourself with this question: what can I do? It's about doing, folks, not just talking. It's about doing. We're not just here, we're not complaining. Yeah, we've pointed out things that we saw were problems, and if that's all we did, then we would just be complainers. But I think the difference between complaining and pointing out problems is creating solutions, addressing those problems with solutions. And that's our goal today, to talk about how we're going to address problems with solutions. It's another exciting episode of the Coaching Life Podcast, and it starts right now.
Welcome back to the Coaching Life Podcast. My name's Pat Martin. I'm here with my friend and co-host, Chris Stewart. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Hi, everybody. Coaches, parents, players, everyone
Officials.
listening. Officials. Can't leave them out.
You know, we've officially added another group of people that are sports related to our podcast listeners.
More relevancy for
This
our
is the
podcast.
first time you've heard about this because I forgot to bring it up to you earlier.
Not someone besides coaches, parents, players, and officials.
Yes. Another group.
All right.
Sports journalists.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
sure, because we've had Lucas on a couple times now.
Right.
and-
But that's true. Lucas is a sport. He's actually a
he
broadcaster.
speaks to those
yeah.
broadcasters. Yeah,
He
and
does, that's true.
We have students who are studying to be broadcasters that are listening, and I even had one student. Hold your thought for a second. I want to tell you this. I don't think I've told you this before.
Okay.
At our the students that I oversee here at the college are called ambassadors, and we always have our ambassadors always have a Christmas party with a little gift exchange, a Secret Santa gift exchange, and things like that. And one of the girls had drawn the name of a journalism student who does work with Ohio athletics and volleyball, I think, in particular some women's sports, and he goes around to high school athletics as well and does some broadcasting on both. He's worked both radio and on TV news, and apparently he has said out there before while working with his peers that he wants to be on our podcast.
Oh,
And this girl remembered him saying that. So she came to me and said, would you be willing to put Luke on your podcast? And I can give that to him as part of his Secret Santa gift. And I said, well, sure, we'll do that.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be a sport. He is currently studying. He's hands-on right now, but he's a student preparing for sports journalism. And so we got to have Luke in sometime. So,
yeah. I feel like there's a lot of people out there that have heard, our podcast and I feel like they have something that they want to share. They think that they can bring something to the table that can help some people just, from their perspective. So
yeah, that's good.
That's
a good thing.
It's a great thing. I'm very appreciative of it. So
Right.
we should.
We're open to have
set that up.
we're open to have anyone. So did you have a specific person that
I had a couple. There's a couple. But I talked to one this weekend that said, "Hey, we've been talking about the podcast and
nice.
and I think maybe
Is that print media or
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
yes. So maybe we can work on getting people like that more on the podcast. So because we continue to expand in that. We keep adding groups of people to the podcast, and throwing Joe Burrow into the list.
That's
and,
right.
We've probably added outside of just parents and coaches and people directly related to youth sports. We've probably added a group of people that could be identified as fans.
Fans of sports.
Fans of sports, right?
Otherwise known as fanatics.
Right. And some people don't really understand what that means, but like people that try to get me to choose Joe Burrow over Baker Mayfield.
Sure.
Right.
We worked on that last week. Then you are a true fanatic.
I am. Unfortunately, yeah.
I'm not. I'm willing to.
You're not.
I'm willing to jump ship.
You're all talk. We'll see. We'll see if you're walking around with a Joe Burrow Bengals jersey here next year.
I can tell you what that answer is. That's a no.
You don't wear jerseys?
I don't do jerseys.
That's a good.
Last
we
jersey,
should have that on.
Yeah, the last jersey. I'm going to say this, but you know it's not true. The last jersey I've worn was the one I was playing.
Yeah,
I did wear an old Megs baseball jersey when I went down there to speak at their homecoming festivities, and so
what did you? Oh, you wore a pullover.
I wore your old jersey.
Well, I know you did that, but when you coached.
Well, yeah, no, we wore a uniform.
Okay.
We wore jerseys.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually didn't like wearing a pullover during the game.
Oh, really?
Coach Hewitt and I took our pullovers off, even when it was freezing cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked being down there with the same thing the kids had on. So I don't know, it was just a personal thing.
I hear you. Good deal.
Yeah.
But our podcast, the Coaching Life podcast, started with a series of episodes that talked about this idea of player development. And, we talked about how we've seen a lot of instances in youth sports, both in a recreational setting and a travel team setting, travel league setting, that where, development of players takes a back seat to really a number of things. And, we wanted to start with the podcast, we wanted to push this narrative of player development, the focus of player development, and kind of nudge youth sports specifically in our area towards developing, not just players, but people.
Yeah.
So, for the last several months, we've been on this journey of the Coaching Life podcast, and we're in season 2 now, and it's been centered around, that idea and of making people better. And at some point we came to the realization that, we want to do more, I guess, and there's more that we can do to help share this vision.
Do more than just talk about it behind a microphone. Right.
And that's what we decided to do. We've decided to do more. We've decided to expand our efforts, and with a number of ideas, a number of ways. But today on this episode, we're going to focus on one of those ways that we're going to expand our efforts here on the Coaching Life podcast going into this year. And we may talk about a couple of the other things that we have planned along the way as we talk about this one thing. But I think, as we start here, before we go right into it, I think it'd be beneficial to take a quick look back at the first several episodes of the Coaching Life podcast and the core concept of something that you, Coach, dubbed the player development program. And just briefly revisit, those episodes and the things that, we think are very important that go along with a player development program.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too. I imagine there may be a number of people who are listening to us now that didn't listen to us from the beginning, or it's possible that people have begun at the start and listened all the way through. But I know someone just recently said, "Hey, I just started listening to your podcast," and I said, "Oh, which episode were you listening to?" And they said, "Well, the most recent one."
Yeah.
And so I think when people jump in on a podcast, they may scroll down and look and see if there's anything of interest, but if not, then they're just jumping in. So it's possible that no one's heard us talk about this. And really, the truth is, I think that if we think back to when we began this podcast, the whole idea of focusing all of our attention and being very intentional about player development in the context of youth sports, particularly we were talking about a baseball program because that's something that you and I know that we can do. We have the most confidence in. It's our favorite sport, and it's the one we work with. Right. But we also believe it could work in other sports as well. We talked about how it could work in soccer. Soccer's already doing it in many places. It can work in football. It can work in basketball. So we can see the relevance of development all across the board of youth sports. We, however, have talked about it in very great detail in episodes 2 through 7 in our podcast, where we broke down our plan and our idea for doing youth baseball and youth softball in a better way, in a way that we feel would be a better way, I should say. I mean, some may disagree, but that idea is focusing 100% on development. And then we talked about what does that mean, because when we say player development, that's actually a word that has exploded here even since we began talking about it.
True.
Last summer on the internet. If you type that in,
Twitter.
for instance, on Twitter, everyone now is talking about development. Teams and organizations are hiring development coaches, and unfortunately, I think the definition of that term development is losing its meaning a little bit. I think it's becoming limited in the way people think about it. They're making development synonymous with a very specific aspect of development. For example, the technology aspect of baseball. If you look on social media, you would almost think that the only way that a person could be developed is if they were using technology. And it's just not true.
Right.
We could probably go off on that and talk about it for a little bit because you and I are passionate about that. But that's one example where I think development, the word itself, is just become very limited. We're talking about it in a much bigger sense.
They're commercialized.
It is. Oh, heck yeah. People are using it. That's no doubt. It's propaganda now.
Right.
So
yeah, for sure. And you said the word development. It's so, it's easy to focus on that, but that really is what the whole program is built around, is the idea of development. Not just player development, but also coach development and official development and person development.
Sure.
And that includes, parents that are sitting in the stands as well. So all of that is kind of incorporated into this idea, along with a premium focus on the way that we approach practice.
Yes. In fact, if you go back and listen, and we really encourage everyone to do this, if you have not listened to episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and 7, and then there's a bonus episode in there that we put in as well called Mistake Avoidance. And what you'll find is that we spend more time talking about coach development and adult development, all the adults involved, coaches, parents, administrators, officials, and then we do talking about kid development or player development. And the reality is it's all about the kids and it's all about their development and it's all for them. But the problem is if you only focus on that and everyone agrees with you and says, yes, we need to make sure that these kids are being better developed for the next level, whatever the next level is that they're wanting to play. It may just be junior high. It may be developing them better as youth because they really want to play in junior high. It may be that they really want to play in high school, and that might be it for a lot of kids.
Right.
But a lot of kids also want to play in college. A lot of kids have dreams to play pro.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so how are they going to get there unless we develop them? Amen. I agree. But adults can't develop kids if adults don't know what the heck they're doing either.
True.
And if they're arguing about little small things that don't really matter, if they're spending money and throwing money at things that don't really matter, who can help them? I think a true player development program steps back and focuses on all of those pieces.
Yeah.
And we have to begin with the adults. We have to.
I agree. I saw a tweet from a member of the Astros player development, which, Astros is a dirty word right now, but for baseball fans out there.
And you'd almost question what kind of development's actually taking place there. Right?
Exactly. Definitely a technology development.
Yeah.
But he said he was talking to a D1 head coach about a player, and the head coach asked 3 questions. He asked, what were the player's grades like? Mm-hmm. How did the player behave in practice? And what's his mom and dad like?
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of hit home with me.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
It basically is mom and dad hovering over you constantly.
Sure.
And that's really what that boils down to.
You can learn a lot about a player.
Is mom and dad a helicopter parent?
Sure. Yeah. So, helping parents, helping ourselves to, give our kids the best opportunity in a lot of different ways is something, that we want to focus on. So, But yeah, episode 2 through 4, I think, was the main part. Did you say? Well, yeah. So.
In episode 2, we talked about training the coach.
Okay. Yes.
And opportunities for coaches to just get better in not only their understanding of the game, but in how to communicate things to kids as well. Mm-hmm. How to be a better coach. And then in episode 3, we talked about practice and particularly practice coaching versus in-game coaching and making your priority developing really great practices and hard practices, competing in practice. I think you began that episode by talking about competition. And in fact, you said, if I go back to episode 2 and training the coach, you said that there were people at that time, friends of yours, that had listened to our first episode where we kind of teased it a little bit and talked about what this podcast was going to be about and what sparked it, what initiated it. And they said to you, well, how can we get this started? How can we, what can we do, right? And, well, we've talked a lot about it for almost a year, and you and I are finally going to answer that question today. What can we do, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that's part of the overall, the bigger picture here today. But then we talked about in episode 4, collaborating, working together for the betterment of the kids. And I remember the context for that conversation was in these, particularly in recreational leagues, you'll have a lot of different teams, and they are all working on their own team, and they're working on playing against each other, right? And beating one another, and that's great. You want to do that. I mean, you're playing to win, and you're playing to win a championship at any level you're at, hopefully. Sure. But we talked about making it a priority in a structure of a league, or even you can do this in travel organizations as well. Even though I think it happens more in travel organizations because you have different age groups, but they're all together in the same organization. Mm-hmm. But more so like in a recreational type league where you've got people playing against each other, we talked about creating maybe a day where, once a week, I think we actually said, where instead of practicing or instead of playing any games, we bring the coaches together on that day.
Right.
And you just basically require your coaches.
Yeah, you brainstorm, you discuss things, discuss philosophies, approaches, beliefs.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking about that, that was when you said something like, I think that we probably have people right now who are listening going, oh, come on. There's no way this is, now you're really thinking outside the box. There's no way this is going to work. Do you remember saying something like that?
Yeah, I think, it's, for whatever reason, maybe this is a life thing, but I feel like it's not always been, but maybe it is. It's hard to take advice from people. It's hard to learn from other people. I think you got to be at a point in your life that you're able to understand that you don't know everything.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
And you can always learn something from somebody else, regardless of where either of you are on the scale of knowledge as it pertains to the thing that is in focus at the time.
Yeah.
You can always learn more,
right.
even if it's wrong, even if what they're saying is wrong. The experience and listening and how they're explaining their perspective, you can learn. From
even if what they're saying is something that you don't agree with.
Exactly, definitely.
It may or may not be wrong.
We live in a society,
but you're never going to find out unless you open yourself up as well.
We live in a society now where everyone, if I disagree with you and you disagree with me, we immediately have offense to each other. We don't.
Right.
We can no longer be friends.
Yeah, we equate disagreement with being offended and you hating me and me hating you, and it's just not. I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to live with anybody that's in that world either.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, I would say, to almost in an answer to the statement of, well, this isn't gonna. I don't see anybody really committing to that. My thought is, if you're a coach and if I'm running a rec league and I made this as one of my goals to help better develop our coaching staff, our coaches, and
it's a requirement.
And you don't want to do that, I don't want you coaching in our league.
I agree. Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
why
you don't want to get better. You don't want to because
or help people get better.
You getting better, help others get better. Right? If you know it all, why not bring it and give it to somebody else?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, because it all trickles down to the kids. It's all, I'm going to take time away from my kids and practice on them to come and do this. Yes, you need to.
Right.
You need to. And they could use the break, probably. One, they could use the break from you. And two, they
definitely.
Rest is an underrated thing. We need rest. We need more rest than what we realize.
Sure.
So, yeah. Back to the development word. Development means more than just instilling those basic fundamentals and skills and everything that we think of when we think of developing an athlete, developing strength to make them more athletic and things like that. Development is, that's a major part of it. That's a major part of what we're thinking when we say it and as well. But it has to include coaches. It has to include better, helping parents to better understand how to behave at games and how to love your kids through this whole process, and we're coming into it, I guess, assuming that everyone wants the same thing. And we're
True.
assuming that everyone wants what's best for the kids. I think people say they want what's best for the kids, but when it comes to actually putting our actions in a place that does what we think we're saying we want,
It's hard.
it's hard.
Yeah.
It is. And we're just going to challenge. We're going to challenge one another to do it. We're going to challenge other people to do it as well.
Yeah. If you, well, we've said this before, the first step to that, to being able to do that effectively, is talking about it and committing yourself to it and saying, this is the type of person that I am. Not that I want to be.
Yes.
This is the type of person I am. That's the way you approach it. So,
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about, behavior in the stands, and I can tell you right now that ever since, we've been on the, doing podcast episodes, I have not completely removed yelling at officials from my from my behavior.
But you're definitely conscious of it now.
Way more conscious,
Yeah.
and even in situations where I feel like I don't necessarily regret the feelings that I had because I felt like the official was completely in the wrong, I think, I kind of wish I.
What good did it do?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
And that
do
comes
any
in
good.
retrospect. But even having those thoughts, you're getting better. It's
Yeah, I'm
the
definitely
process.
better.
The process is. I don't know in that specific case because I've not been to your games, but I know, and that's how it works. That's how the process of getting better works.
Sure.
You're not getting perfect.
You don't go.
You
from,
don't go from really bad to perfect.
Right.
You go from really bad to getting a little bit better, 1% every day.
Actually,
and
yeah.
Shoot for perfection. Right. If you're not aiming at it, you're never going to get even close to it. None of us are going to get there.
Right. Dream
But-
big. Right.
But if you're not aiming at it, exactly right. We say it every other episode. It seems like so.
So what are we talking about here?
For us personally, specifically,
Yeah, we've kicked
What
it
are we
around.
gonna do?
What are we going to do?
we have to start somewhere,
2020,
don't we?
Yeah.
And we would love to have the finances and the resources to just kick something, to go out and buy some land and build a bunch of fields and a facility and say, all right, this is the Coaching Life Player Development Program. Come and sign up. Unfortunately, Pat and I don't have that kind of money and resources. So we've sat down outside of the podcast studio and we've asked ourselves, what can we do? And we think a lot of you out there, this is relevant for you. We're going to tell you what we're planning to do, but we want you to ask yourself the same question because everyone who's listening is in a different place. Maybe you're a high school coach. Maybe you're a travel ball coach. Maybe you do both. Maybe you're a dad. Maybe you're a mom. Maybe you're an official, and maybe you're an administrator of a recreational league. Maybe you're just nobody, but you're just really interested in this right now. And so you ask yourself the question as well, what can you do right now today? And the answer that you and I came up with was start a team.
Start a program.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And a program can begin with one team.
Sure. Right. Well, typically I would say it probably does. Travel organizations, most of them probably start
Started
with
somewhere.
one good team that went around and competed and was very successful, and then a group of parents of say younger kids said, hey, we've got a group of kids too. Can we join your banner? Can we play under your banner? So. This is the way I would say most, at least travel organizations start. And you can't have a recreational league with one team either. So you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so we're gonna do a 14U team based in. I'm not gonna call it. It's a player development
Right.
program.
You,
team,
you
right?
almost said
I almost
travel
said
team
travel.
or all that. We'll include a little bit of that, right?
Yeah, we
We'll include a little bit of travel.
will get in our cars and go and play somewhere.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to be 14U.
But we're just, it's a development team. I think
Sure.
that's okay to say.
Yeah.
That's our
A
goal
development
is to
team, right.
we're starting a development program. So if we got to start somewhere, we're going to start with a team. So it's a development team. So
Yep.
Yeah.
Based in Southeast Ohio. Do we want to talk about why we thought that 14U is a good
absolutely
age group? Yeah.
I think it's a great thing to consider. You know, we didn't just randomly throw out, let's do 14U. We had a discussion one time. One of the questions that was brought to us one time was, where do you think we're losing a lot of kids to baseball specifically, and to high school baseball, and just the game of baseball in general? And I think if you look at it, and I'm speaking, of course, from this region of the United States, you know, Ohio particularly. I know we're not the only region in Ohio that suffers from this, but I can only speak from experience and specifically about Southeastern Ohio. And so I'm going to speak about Southeastern Ohio and what our experience has been here. And I think one of the reasons perhaps why we lose kids at this age. There are a lot of reasons why I think baseball loses kids after 12 years old, I would say. So 13, 14 years old.
And we
then,
know it happens.
And then on into high school. Statistics
They're out
show,
there.
yeah.
And they've got,
Little League has those statistics. I mean, you know, for the most part, the Little League organization that is Little League extends, believe it or not, Little League extends beyond 12 years old. It goes,
Yes.
Yeah, there's Babe Ruth and Pony. And in fact, here locally in Athens in 1986,
I thought it was 87. Yeah.
87. This is another podcast guest that I've been trying to get on. He's been one of the hardest guests to book. Coach Fred Gibson coached the senior Little League team, which is 16 years old, I believe, 16 and under, to a Little League World Series. And they just put a documentary on YouTube right now. I mean, just this past, right before Christmas, this documentary came out. I watched it, and man, I tell you what, it is, the things that they had video of back then was really cool. I mean, they came back and did a parade and everything. They filmed a little bit of people. They basically got video from people who had taken those big shoulder cameras and filmed as much as they could of games back then. But the documentary is on YouTube right now. I wish I could think of the name of it.
Is it One Magical Summer?
One Magical Summer is the
Go
name
to
of
that.
it. Go
Everybody,
to that and watch that.
A lot of people weren't aware of this, and I mean, 1987. I was playing baseball. I was very young, and I was surprised to hear about it, and I didn't know it went on.
Yeah. They won the World Series.
They won the World Series, and the stories. I mean, it's such a good documentary. It's on YouTube.
If you like baseball, you'll like it. If you like baseball, you'll like. For sure. Yeah. So even if you don't live in this area, I think if you like baseball, you'll like just the small town aspect, the history of it.
Oh yeah.
But if you live in this area, if you live in southeastern Ohio and you're familiar with Athens and you're familiar and you know Fred Gibson, Gibby, you'll love this. You'll love it.
Yeah, really good, really neat thing that they put together there. So definitely go out and watch that. One Magical Summer on YouTube.
How did we get onto that?
Because we're talking about losing kids,
yes,
and the fact that Little League does go on, it extends
beyond.
They have different,
but again, like
divisions.
you said, you didn't even realize that. I mean, you knew it in your local area. You had the Pony League and
a lot of people don't realize that the Little League is because Little League in our local league is just a couple years of the recreational league. It refers to the 12U and 11U years of the program.
Well, I'll tell you, here in Athens, that's the last 2 years of the local recreation league. 12U is it.
Yeah.
And then there's junior high ball.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is, the game changes when you get beyond Little League. And for a lot of kids, when they get to the middle school years, for example, if your local area has a rec league that's similar to what I just explained, in Athens, the rec league, or it's not really ran by the city recreation department. It's a private organization called the Sandlot. They finish at 12 years old. Now, of course, they have a junior high league as well that is more tied to schools.
Runs during the spring.
It's run during the spring. But beyond 12 years old, there's not a lot of options. You've got to try out for your junior high team and make it. And before that, when you're 12, there's a number of teams you could make. You come and sign up for the league, and you you go to a tryout, but it's not really a tryout. It's just an evaluation day, and then they do a draft, and then
they do that really well.
You're
That's
on one. It is. It's they do a really good. They do it right. I think they do a great job with it for a local rec league, and you could play. I mean, there could be anywhere between 6 and 9, 10, 12 teams, depending on how many kids sign up. Every kid that signs up plays. That stops happening when you get to junior high, and I'm not going to say that's a problem, because I think as you get older, you do need to earn your way. I mean, trying out and getting cut is part of life. If you get to a place where the opportunities are limited because of the number of teams, and when you get to high school, the opportunity is going to be limited. You got to make that team.
Right.
But a lot of kids we lose in those junior high years, I think, for a couple of reasons. One is either there is no junior high option where you live, or the only junior high option you have is just poor. It's poor. It's a poor program. It's poor competition.
Right.
It's not fun because of that.
In Ohio, 7th and 8th grade baseball isn't a sanctioned sport. In West Virginia, it is.
In most places in Ohio, it's not.
It definitely isn't in southeastern Ohio, at least,
Yeah. I think if you sanction it, you've got to play by the OHSAA rules, which means you can only play 27 games, and your kids are bound by the same rules. I think Ohio does provide junior high ball if you say that your school is going to support the team. What we have here locally is an Athens team made up of just kids that go to Athens, but it's a club team.
Sure. So that'd be the same way.
The Sandlot organization actually does support that team. It runs like a school team, but they're able to play as many games as they want and enter as many leagues as they want.
But there's some challenges that come along with that.
Yeah, and just the fact that we're trying to explain the differences makes it difficult. People don't always understand that.
Yeah.
And so the opportunities just completely decrease. I mean, really in our area, if you want to play 13U or 14U ball, and you want to play it at a competitive level, you better find a travel team, and you better have known to try out for that travel team in August of this past year, or you're not going to find a decent team to play on, it's just the opportunities become extremely limited. You no longer have that sign up day in February or March where you go down to your local rec center and you sign up to play and you try on a pair of pants and all that stuff.
You got to be very committed to the sport at that point.
You have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're not, you miss out on the opportunities that are there.
And a lot of kids and a lot of the parents don't know what they're looking for, don't know how to look, don't know how to look for what, don't know how to look for what it is they're hoping to find, and therefore we lose them. It's one of the reasons we lose them, I think.
Right. So that's what we're going to do.
We are 14. We put out word a few months ago
and said we were going to get back to everybody in about a week.
Yeah. Well, people who reached out to you at least responded to them, right? And said, you stay on hold here. We're still talking about through it and some of the details. And on the back end of it, you and I have been working on details and things like that. So basically what we did was we created a little, we created an advertisement, you can say, and put it out there on social media, just a couple of different apps, Facebook and Twitter, I think, maybe Instagram as well, and said, if anyone is interested, give Pat a call. I didn't want them calling me. We gave Pat's info. Actually, I got your phone number and email address on here. And really, here's all it says: ages 14 and under baseball team in southeastern Ohio. Chris Stewart and Pat Martin, host of the Coaching Life podcast, are starting this team from scratch.
Right.
And I just said, some general information about this team and some of the priorities that we have going forward and starting it. List of bullet points. Focus on player development, which means practice time and quality instruction will be a priority. Provide opportunities for some unstructured free play for greater learning and enjoyment of the game. That was actually one of the topics of our player development program series early on. Play in 3 travel tournaments. That was the initial ballpark thought, that we would actually play in a few travel ball tournaments.
Right.
Other competition would include host at near home 2 or 3 near to home round robin weekend events with 2 or 3 other teams, which would mimic the college baseball weekend experience.
Exactly.
And we actually went through that in great detail in episode 7 of our player development program description. And we talked about we were going to take this opportunity to provide information and preparation for the college recruiting process, what that's like, help people understand that this is what it's going to take, and we'll actually help you with video. And this being part of this team and being part of this program means that you're going to get that as well. And how to create emails, how to reach out to college coaches. When should you start? What are all the pieces of the process that maybe you don't think of up front? We're going to give you all that. And here are the last two bullet points. Have time to take a summer family vacation, and be affordable.
Right.
Be affordable.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are costs involved, but we want we want to try to minimize all of those extra costs. Those things that are never included in player fees, but they are always there every summer, and they end up costing you more than player fees, like travel and hotel and extra meals and things like that, and just all the things that add up. You don't take into account, your player fee. You paid $1,500, $1,600 for this kid to be on this team. You're paying another $2,000 this summer when you do all those things as well.
Yeah.
And so we really want to try to minimize those things because, again, you can develop players and prepare them for the next level without all of those costs.
Sure.
You can.
Right, yeah.
And we might look a little simpler with 1 or 2 uniform options for our junior Copperheads team.
Oh, we're going to talk about that?
Yeah.
So
in Southeast Ohio, you got to be called the Copperheads.
We're going to be the junior Copperheads, yeah.
Yeah.
We
may not have 3 different bags and 3 sets of cleats and 2 different helmets and 6 different uniform combinations because we want to keep the cost down.
Well, a lot of those things, I think a good point to make, a lot of those things that you're mentioning there are really game-related things. And when you're talking, if you go back and listen to the early episodes of the Coaching Life podcast and listen to our ideas of a player development program, you're going to hear a lot of emphasis on practice.
Yeah.
And there's an idea out there that you have to play a huge number of games in order to give yourself the best ability to develop as a player. And while I agree that playing the game is important, you have to play. There's a lot of ways to do that, and I think
what a lot of those people are saying is that there's nothing like the heat of competition.
Sure.
And so you got to know how to create that in practice.
That's true.
Because what you're not getting in the heat of competition is reps.
Yeah.
You're getting the competition, but you could play shortstop and maybe, if it's a good day, get 6 ground balls hit to you.
Yeah. What are you getting in the heat of competition? You're getting fulfillment, aren't you?
Yes, you are.
So that's another thing. It's another type of idea that we talked about that kind of drives kids away from baseball because they've played so much of it.
That's a huge point. Was that a theory that did you come up with that? Did you say?
That was you.
I read a tweet. Yeah. It's not my original thought.
Right.
But something that somebody said was that, here we are. Something that somebody said one time. Who knows? I can't even remember what it was.
Well, listen to the episode.
Go back and find it.
Was there.
But the whole idea that this is one of the things that causes kids to stop playing is they're fulfilled so much earlier in life. They have the best looking gear. They have better gear in their 12U travel teams than they're going to get in high school.
Yeah.
They've played on the best fields. They've played on better fields in 8U and 9U than they're going to play on in high school and some college.
My 12U uniform consisted of one of those mesh hats, real flimsy mesh hats with the cardboard bill.
And the foam,
the foam in the top.
Yeah.
A T-shirt. And a pair of pants that had been
a T-shirt with those pressed-on letters that came off about halfway through the season,
exactly.
like the heat transfer.
Yeah, and then a pair of pants and socks that had been passed down through the league for 4 or 5 years at that point.
They always had that smell. It's the 6th year these stirrups have been worn.
I don't remember having conversations about why we don't have better uniforms as kids.
Oh, never. And I'll tell you the truth, I really looked forward to uniform day. I loved it.
The handout and everything.
You loved getting your new uniform.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but when I was a kid on uniform day, the first thing I did when I got home was put it on.
I don't even remember.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Loved it. So I understand. But again, maybe it was just because it was all we knew. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've taken everything overboard. Everything has gone overboard, and we're just not about that. I mean, so granted, it's going to limit probably the people who want to play for us because of that.
Well,
but you've gotten quite a few people.
Yeah,
reaching
quite
out
a few
to you,
people are interested. I think we have a list of around 30 right now,
which is more than we can handle.
which is more than we can handle. And we're gonna talk about that and how we're gonna handle it at a meeting that we'll announce here in a few days, probably after this podcast episode airs. But there's a couple of things that people are really interested about, and one is the schedule. When are we going to play?
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of nailed that down. We have some ideas on what tournaments we want to go to and things like that. But the bulk of our schedule is going to be in June, and then probably early July, leaving June and July both open with possibilities. There might definitely at the end of July there might be some more opportunities to get into some unstructured free play and things like that. But June and July is going to be the heavy parts of our schedule.
Yeah. And the good thing too about having a little higher numbers, I guess you say. I mean, 30 is a lot, but we're gonna. One of the things we plan on talking about is look, if you play other sports and you've got a soccer camp or a basketball camp, something in the football workouts, whatever in the middle, give us those dates. We know you're not going to be. We're not going to. There's no pressure for you to be at every single thing.
Right.
We understand. We again, part of our philosophy is encourage kids to play multiple sports and don't make them feel like they have to be here. You're going to hurt the team. I understand. It's just that we're living in a day where you've got to permit that. You've got to allow that. And so that's one of the things, again, we could say, these are days that we're leaving open for you to take family vacation. But if you've already planned your family vacation and it doesn't fall in the same week as we left open, okay, no big deal. Give us the date. When you're going to be gone, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's part of that flexibility in regards to family vacation that we talked about.
Right.
That's one of the things that we're going to try to afford you. And in talking about losing kids, from sports, but specifically from baseball, I think that's one of the things that we have to get better at as coaches and administrators is being able to work around people's schedules. And some people will talk about character and commitment. And,
right.
But heck, what are you more committed to or loyal to than your family?
Right.
The answer better be nothing.
This is a game. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, and just because you take a vacation in the middle of a season doesn't mean you're not committed to the team.
Right.
This is one of the ludicrous things I've ever heard in my life.
That's something.
Especially if you communicate it to me up front. These are the dates.
That's true. That's important. I think that communication is important, but that is something that as a very young coach, I was very much against kids being gone on vacation.
Sure.
And I've actually set kids on the bench because of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, as a young coach, I believe I'd handle it much differently now.
Yeah, I've done that. I mean, it's a little different context, I mean,
communication
in high
is
school
important.
ball, when we began our practices, you only have 5 weeks to prepare your team according to the rules of when you're allowed to start mandatory practice. And you got about 5 good weeks, and then scrimmages begin, and before you know it, the season starts, and inevitably we would have 1 week of practice, or the first week of practice here in Athens would be spring break. And so when I took over, I basically said, we need you all here on spring break. And so it was, again, it's a different context.
It's a much different context because, some people don't play high school. Some people aren't necessarily committed to a sport that they play in high school. They're still there for the recreational attributes of doing that, being with their friends and things like that. But if that is what you're committed to, if that's the level of commitment that you have, then it's not an issue of sitting on the bench because you missed because of, a family vacation that you take or something like that. You know what I mean? But I think in most parts, like you're talking about, it's normally it comes down to the communication. And as you as a coach, you say, I really need you here during this time. And if they're not there, then that causes an issue. So I think I definitely think that's a different context. This is summer baseball. This is something that we're doing to try to give kids a different experience and to maintain their interest in a game that you and I love. And,
Right.
and in order to do that, we're going to have to be a little bit flexible.
Sure.
And that's something that people have asked about already.
And it's one of the reasons why we decided, one of the questions that we threw around was, when do we begin? Like, practically, when do we begin?
Right.
And with this age group, you can technically begin as early as you want, because none of these kids are in high school yet. They're not playing high school ball. Now, again, we live close to West Virginia. The ones in West Virginia would have the issue if we have kids on the team from West Virginia, which we do have interest from West Virginia.
Yes,
but
they have junior high ball,
right?
Which is
and
a
so
school
those
sanctioned
kids
sport.
can't play until they're done with their school sanctioned sport.
Right.
So it's actually one of the reasons why we decided to begin in June, because we said, hey, if you do play junior high ball, whether it's club or whether it's school sanctioned sport, this isn't going to interfere with it.
Right.
You'll be able to jump into that. And if you don't play junior high ball, but you want to run track
Right.
or do something like that, you can do that and still have really good quality baseball to look forward to in June as well.
Yeah. We may have some, what I've dubbed workshops, practices leading up to June that, are voluntary.
Yeah. Right.
You can come if you want to come.
It could be a nice preview for parents as well to get out and see what kinds of things we're looking at. We could talk with them about some of the our goal is to be really proactive in interacting with parents as well in this program.
Yep, definitely. That's going to be one of the benefits that hopefully the program brings to people. So, cost, we'll release a cost per player. It will probably fluctuate depending on how many, players we end up having
and donations and fundraising.
And that's, I think,
if
that's
any
the
of you
point
out
I
there are
wanna
listening
make.
to us and
Right.
you really love this idea and you would like to sponsor us, please reach out, because we could certainly use all of the help that we can get to make this really, it's really unfortunate that what limits a lot of great ideas is resources.
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's the way.
and you and I are starting this with no money in our pockets. And so if you'd like to help, reach out.
Yeah. So we're going to, sponsors definitely, we're going to try to do that, and then, run a couple fundraisers that, maybe not completely eliminate the cost of playing, but can
Boy,
definitely.
wouldn't that be great though?
It would be. And I think
have
some
a
of the
vision
ideas that
that I
we
would
have
love.
has an we're going to have a chance to do it.
Yeah.
I think, we'll be able to eliminate a good
Creates
majority
effort.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it requires effort, and it's going to require effort on everyone's part. But how awesome would it be to be able to play without there being any cost?
Yeah. it'd be
because
great.
you've worked to supplement it. So
Yeah. So what are the primary benefits? We've already talked about some of them. You mentioned the college feel. I think that's a huge thing that
for our weekend series that we want to run
this round robin, because we're going to treat it not as a for people out there that have the experience in travel tournaments, and really not just travel tournaments, but any type of tournament that you get into, you're crammed into a time slot. All the games are crammed into a time slot, so you don't have time.
you have time limits.
Yeah, exactly. You have time limits, right? And that was one of the things.
Baseball should not have time limits. There's no clock.
It wasn't built. The game wasn't designed for a time limit.
We've just embraced it. We've gotten so used to it because of travel ball, and it's really bad in softball. I played some places where there's an hour time limit. You get one or two at bats.
Wow, we've had
ridiculous.
baseball games that way.
Yeah, and then what happens is you coach to it as well.
You have to.
Yeah, I don't know.
To win,
exactly.
you have to.
I hate it.
Yeah,
I hate it. So
I can think
we're
of
not going to have
conversations
it
right now.
on our weekend series. We're not going to have time limits because you're going to have 3 or 4 teams at the most, and basically you're going to play all of those teams, and then we'll put, on the last day, whatever that last day is, whether it be Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon, we'll play the 2, I guess, top seeded and the two bottom seeded, and let them play for first, second, third, and fourth.
Right.
And go away with a nice handshake and maybe a T-shirt or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
but they're all going to get to take infield and outfield.
Right.
They're going to get a chance to take BP before the game, and it's going to be run like a college feel.
Yep. And for the most part, we're going to seek out advanced competition, I would say.
It's not going to be easy for our team.
No, it won't.
I mean, we want to. So this group of kids, they're going to be the guinea pigs of this. It's going to be great. I really think it's going to be great. It's going to be an awesome experience for them.
We're going to seek out. We're not going to seek out trophies. We're going to seek out competition.
Right.
So, our goal was to
You're
make
going
it
to
difficult.
get better because it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's what you want. Listen, if you don't want to get better, if you don't want to develop, this isn't the program for you.
Right.
If you want things to be easy, it's going to be fun. I don't look at fun and easy as being antonyms.
Oh, no.
They're synonymous
Right.
in my mind. In fact, the harder things are, the more fun it ends up being, I think, later. And so,
Especially if you find success in it.
yeah, you look back and you see, this is, one of the best videos. LSU did a lot of really great videos every week, their hype videos and things. Did you happen to see the one? It may have only been 20 seconds, but it was after the national championship. And I think it was just a little, they made it in slow motion. And it was just Joe standing beside whichever interviewer was getting ready to interview him after the game. Because I think the broadcast went to Ed Orgeron first and interviewed him. And then, of course, they wanted to talk to Joe as well, Burrow. And there was a camera that was just focused on Joe at that moment.
Yeah. I
Did
know
you see
exactly
that?
what you're talking
and it's
about.
in slow motion, and confetti is falling everywhere. People are going nuts. There's fans everywhere. And you just see him look up in the sky and look all around at the confetti, and you see the biggest deep breath that you've ever seen a person take. Like, it was like someone had said, that's the first deep breath that kid's taken. And, I guarantee it's not, because breathing is so vitally important. But
It might have been the first breath he'd taken since the first half.
in that game. Yeah.
Drilled.
Of course, the point there being all of that hard work
Sure.
and he's just taking it all in.
Yeah.
This is what it meant.
And he's preparing for
Already.
to do it all over again.
Already, yes.
'Cause
From the bottom.
everything that he's done, he's gonna repeat that to be successful in the pros. So that's life.
It is.
If you can
is.
embrace that grind of the challenge, and taste that success and just know that struggle makes you better.
Without a doubt.
That's going to help you as you go along.
Without a doubt. Well, there's a handful of things that we've talked about also that we can let people know that we plan on doing in terms of practicalities and trying to help our area become more focused on just being better at developing one another and developing their young athletes. We've talked about the 14U team that we're putting together,
right?
And that we hope we anticipate will grow in future years. We look forward to seeing how that happens. We've talked about doing a coaching life clinic.
Yes,
for coaches and parents, and just
so putting to life that collaboration idea.
Yes,
of inviting coaches and parents to this
a workshop,
a room,
a round table, where we don't suggest that we have everything to say, that that we have a room where people are sitting and facing you and me, and we're going to teach them everything.
I don't think that
we
would sell
envision
very
this to
much.
be a
It's not for me.
collaborative workshop, a collaboration of let's learn from one another. But I think we do have a lot to share. And if there are people who would be interested in doing that, that would be open to anyone, not just people who would be part of our particular team.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. In the same vein, we talked about doing a camp for kids, a coaching life camp, a development camp, which is basically a baseball camp. And,
Sure.
And something that you and I have talked about, reaching out to different people, coaches, high school coaches in the area, to be involved in helping us with that. That kind of a clinic or camp would be something that maybe we can use, I don't know, find some place to give the proceeds to, our team perhaps. Not a bad idea. Do it for selfish reasons. And then an idea was actually brought to us after our interview with Coach Shimmick from Waynesburg University, the Waynesburg University softball coach, where he came into the podcast with a couple of questions for us, which I thought was really, really fascinating. I loved that aspect of that interview. And one of the things he asked us was, what are some things that we can do better as college coaches? What are we missing out there in our recruiting or in our connection with? Where's the disconnect between us and parents or high school kids. And I came ready for an answer with that because it was fairly easy to think of because of the area in which we live, which is rural Ohio. And I think, one of the, I won't, hash out the entire answer, but basically in gist it was, I think there are kids that are being missed that live in rural areas and as well as inner city areas, which Eric Bakich, the head baseball coach for for Michigan at the College World Series this year, talked about that and how he is intentional about going into inner cities and recruiting kids who are never going to play on a travel team.
Right.
They can't afford it. They can't get there. They don't have any transportation, and they're great athletes. And he said, I want my team to have those kinds of kids. And I said, we got to include rural kids in that as well. So we talked about that a little bit on that episode. We had a listener reach out to us and say, here's an idea. Maybe you guys could run with it and see if you can make it happen. It would be phenomenal if we could do like a rural prospect camp and he was speaking specifically for softball players. It could be done for softball and baseball. And
for people listening, it could be done for any sport.
That's true.
Really.
If you have kids that are playing in high school who want to play in college, but maybe they can't afford to go to all the camps.
Yeah.
And they're just never their exposure's not going to be there. Mm-hmm. We've chatted about this a little bit since that email was sent to us, and I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it is something that we could really make happen. I think it would be beneficial for the kids. I think the challenge is getting the interest from the college coaches.
Right.
But one of the ways that I think we can sort of balance that out is, we could bring in, we have enough connections. I think we could bring in 7 or 8 college coaches and they would be there. I think that we could get them there. And it would be a mix of Division I, NAIA, Division III, and Division II. We have a pretty good mix of all those in our local area. We could get a handful of coaches, let's say, for both a baseball and a softball prospect day. But that's pretty limited. Mm-hmm. That's not great exposure.
Right.
What we could do is for every girl that came, every guy that came, we could do some pretty quality video of all of them. We could, work them out and we film them. And it would take a lot of time on our behalf and behind the scenes to help them with this, but we give them the video and we give them the resources and the tools. And not only do we have this prospect day, but we sit them down as well in sort of, I guess, a classroom type of experience as part of that day. If it's a 4-hour day, an hour and a half of it, for example, might be basically helping them understand how to create exposure for themselves.
Right.
So we could bring 6 or 7 college coaches to our prospect day, and that's fantastic. But if we could give them a tool, put it in their hands, and and tell them how to use it, they could reach out to hundreds of college coaches. And that's really what it takes. You've got to do that. And we could do that for, almost nothing.
Well, and it would grow from there.
It would.
I think you would be able to
then
get
you would
more
have
interest
more
slowly,
Right.
But you'd have to be able to start somewhere.
But the fact is, we're envisioning the kids that would come to that, they're not going anywhere else. So we're at least giving them something. We're giving them an opportunity to run with. If they want to take it, they'll do it. And so that's part of the, that's some of the ways, so Tom, if you're listening, that's some of the ways that Pat and I have been sort of talking about that idea that you brought to us. It's fantastic. And if anyone else has some more thoughts on that, we would love to hear them.
Absolutely. Right.
But because, obviously all this, requires others' help. We need a field, right?
Yeah.
To do something like that. So someone needs to come contact us and say, hey, you can use our field. If there's a high school coach out there, you and I, for our team that we're developing. The reason why we chose, not the reason, but another reason why we chose 14U is because there are more fields available. We could use high school fields in the area. And so those are the kinds of things that we need more help from others for those things. But you can do them in your areas as well. If you're listening to us and you don't live anywhere near us, but some people that you can reach out to and say, hey, here's some things that we can do. Let's do it. It's kind of our goal here is just to make the overall landscape of youth ball better.
Yep. Start making changes.
Yeah. Well, that's all we got for now, right? We've got a lot more, but we can save it.
Yeah. I hope everyone out there is energized.
Yeah.
They're excited about it.
Yeah. I know I'm getting excited.
Well, thanks for joining us. Is this episode 38?
It is episode 38, and we have some guests lined up that are going to be on future podcasts that we hope to get on here soon, both in studio and over the phone. But some really great guests in softball world, baseball world, even basketball, and multiple sports as well. And we really hope that we can line those up. If not, we'll think something else to talk about next week. So
Yeah, no problem with that. Thanks for listening, everyone.